Five Nights at Freddy's 2 brings us back to the pizzeria. We continue following our heroes of Mike and Abby, who are trying to move on with the horrors they just faced in the first movie. Well, at least Mike is, while Abby is still caught up with wanting to reunite with her friends. Something that actually starts to become a reality when the original location gets broken into and we uncover secrets we didn't know about before. That's all pretty much. I have any spoilers. You guys, this will be a spoiler-free review. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. It was a journey, following along the updates of that first movie and how it took 7 years for it to come to fruition. It felt like no matter how the movie was, good or bad, at least it finally came true, and for a lot of people, mainly fans, they really did enjoy that first movie. I think it even came to a bit of a surprise for Blumhouse and Universal with how big of a success it ended up being, because I'm sure they kind of regret putting it on Peacock and theaters the exact same day. Not making that mistake here on the second time, I was not only curious to see what the movie would build off of from the first movie. Would it lean more into just favoring the fans who just love it and are hoping they'll continue to feed into the franchise and make it so they can have their full trilogy? Will they actually backpedal a little bit and make it more friendly for casuals that were left a little disappointed or confused with that first movie? Heck, even if they do pander to the fans, will they return? Because now the magical warm feeling of Five Nights at Freddy's movie is kind of over, because we got that. Will this one just not feel as special, and some people will just wait to watch it at home because it doesn't feel as big of an event as the first movie did? All I know is I was hearing them saying that this one was supposed to be bigger, bolder, more animatronic, scarier. They listened to the fans and they were going to make true on those promises, and well, I seen the movie. I sat down with Mr. Fazbear and Chica, and I'll say, yeah, they actually did listen a little bit to the fans. But I don't think it's going to do much to change the minds of anybody who was just not fond of that first movie. Which is kind of the first thing I wanted to get out the way here. Looking at this, I think if you are a fan of that first movie and you like what they brought to the table, you're going to enjoy this one just as much, maybe even a little bit more, because I do think it's true. They really stepped up. Now that they know there's a built-in fan base, that they will actually pay money to see this, the amount of money they put in for all sorts of animatronics, moments with them, locations and set pieces, yeah, they really did deliver on this one feeling bigger. Another promise that they said is that this one would be scarier. And look, it's still PG-13 at the end of the day, but it is for sure attempting to do more thrills and scares than the last movie. So a lot of people complain the last film didn't have enough jump scares. Get ready for jump scares galore in this one. When the kills come, although like I said, still a PG-13 movie, they do try to push the envelope a little bit. And I'll tell you, the opening scene of this movie, love that. That was honestly the peak of the movie for me, was the opening. I really loved seeing that flashback scene and the little moments with the yellow rabbit and what goes on with the girl that we see screaming in the trailer. Like, there was a little moment within that opening where something was real and I go, oh, okay, they did that. And it gives you a little bit of goosebumps too when it's mixed in with that great score that they also had in the first movie opening credits. They really nailed it with that score, and it gets you in the mood for the movie. And I did get my answer to something I was wondering about. This movie is continuing to lean then on these films being for the fans. They've made their stance, and well, that's good for them because they are the ones that have kept Five Nights at Freddy's going and as popular as it has been for so long. I kind of respect them from just going, hey, you either know this stuff or you don't, because the movie is very fan servicey. It's in a way where there's going to be a lot of FNAF fans watching this going, dude, I know in my theater I was in there with a bunch of fast heads and they were going crazy at the amount of Easter eggs, game mechanics, lore drops. I mean, a guy just had to say his first name and the audience gasps. Because as a fan, knowing the lore, the games and all that, you know then who this person is and why they look so devious. Yeah, I'm talking about you, crazy eyebrow guy. And again, from the fan perspective, I think that stuff was integrated in the movie in a way that just makes it so fun to watch. I find it more interesting what they decide to weave in from the games, what they kind of leave out. Aside also from like this one trying to be bloodier or just more effective with the PG-13 kills, the one scary aspect that I thought they actually nailed really well was the marionette. How the puppet was just used in the movie itself. It was getting to a point where I thought a lot of the marketing, trailers, TV spots were just giving away so much stuff in this movie, but there's a decent amount of things that were completely hidden that will come as a surprise to some fans. And the stuff, again, with the marionette, I found the most creepy. I thought they were actually pretty effective with that. There are some newer things they do with it also that isn't exactly from the games, but within the movie, like I said, it added for some creepy visuals. And so really, those are the biggest positives I can give, is from a fan perspective, this is the movie you'd want to see and have fun with, and it delivers on it. It brings in stuff from the games you wanted to see explored. Tons of Easter eggs, callbacks, and even inside jokes. They do push the kills to as much as they can for PG-13. But now if we had to look at some of the negatives, and me being honest with it, if you're just not a fan of this series, this movie is not gonna be for you. You can say this for the first movie, but even more for the second movie, because it just dives so much deeper into the lore, and at this point you're either on for the ride or you're not. Watching this movie not knowing much about Five Nights at Freddy's, it's like watching your friends laugh at an inside joke you're not part of. You're just like, oh man, they're having a good time. Wish I knew what that was about. Because a lot of the plot points, things that happen, character reveals, or moments that occur are just things that feel earned because you have the background knowledge of why they exist. But in the movie world, it feels random. It feels like, okay, there's toy animatronics. Okay, cool. Whoa, the Withered are here. How do you explain that? What's going on with this marionette? Like, it just feels so out of left field, and like the movie's making it up as it goes along. While a fan is not going to feel that way because it's like, oh no, I watched a 3-hour video for why that makes sense. You're not keeping up, buddy? But even looking at it from the fan perspective, some negatives I did have was, I really wanted more Matthew Lillard, man. He's in this movie even less than he was in the first movie. I think a lot of that is on purpose because, again, if you're a fan, you kind of know what they're building up towards. And Matthew Lillard's already mentioned multiple times in interviews that he is the Voldemort of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. And just like Voldemort in Harry Potter, he was only sprinkled in throughout the beginning movies until he became the overall threat by the end. And so I guess it's purposeful that Matthew Lillard is used very sparingly in this movie, which I wish they found a way to just still have him be a decent part of the movie, or at least have equal amount of screen time as the first film. Because a lot of the reason of why I like the opening of this movie is the yellow rabbit stuff, and I'm like, I'd watch a whole movie of that. There's also this mystery character thrown into the movie that was kind of interesting. I would have liked them more if they fleshed them out, but we only get to spend so much time with him that by the time things are revealed and stuff is established, the movie has to come to a close, and it doesn't feel like we got to spend a lot with that repercussion. And jumping off that point, another character played by Skeet Ulrich, who is in this movie, he's another person that I wish we could have spent more time with, could have fleshed out, because you really don't get to flesh him out. You don't get to know who he is until the credits roll. And you don't even get footage with that. No, so there is a post-credit scene in this movie, and then there's a voice message after that as the credits are going on. And in that voice message, you get more details about Skeet Ulrich's character than the actual movie provided, which I found kind of odd. It again goes back to that thing of like, oh, if you're a fan and you've done your homework, well, then you just know. But as a movie itself and doing its job and fill you in on characters, it lacks in that department. So all this to say, look, fans were still going to enjoy this movie and have a good time with it. I still wish there was more killing or just violent things going on. The PG-13 rating is still holding back this movie. If we get to that third film, which for sure they got to, right? I would kind of plead to Blumhouse that just take the leap. Give it the R rating, especially for the storyline you set up for that third movie, which honestly I'm really excited for. I need you to just have no limits with it and just take the leap. I think you'd be surprised how many more people would actually show up with the fact that it's gonna be an entirely bloody, just all-out thrill ride with that third movie. Small nitpicks here, but some of the voice acting with the toy animatronics, like Megan Fox really didn't make a difference as Toy Chica. Like, yeah, I had fun watching Toy Chica do her thing. At one point in the movie, she even looks at the camera and says, "You like my body?" And I'm like, yes, Toy Chica. Whole theater was silent, and I said out loud, "Yes, Toy Jacob!" I'm banned from that movie theater now. But I think the one a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, I can't wait to see what that sounds like, is the voice of Toy Bonnie, who we know is being voiced by Matt Pat. Good on him for doing a voice, but it is not gonna be the recognizable Matt Pat voice you know. If you close your eyes, or if you watch the whole movie and then they told you, hey, Matt Pat voiced that character, you'd be like, what, he did? That sounded nothing like him. I thought that was a chick. Kinda would have been nice though if it just said, hello, internet. Missed opportunity. 2 movies in, I think it still holds a little bit of that charm and marvel of like, dude, look at them bring the toy animatronics to life. The Withered, all these things going on. It hasn't completely faded, but it feels like that PG-13 and that over-reliance on knowing your homework before you see this movie, it's growing thin. All is to say, though, when I did see that post-credit scene and knowing what they're setting up for the 3rd movie, it's my most anticipated film in this trilogy. So when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm gonna give Action 3 stars. I kind of was honestly hoping for a little bit more going on with the animatronics. You do get a couple sequences of the toy animatronics running around the town and going after people for certain reason, but it didn't last as long as I'd like, and I kind of would have hoped for a bigger body count with the amount of animatronics we get in this movie. Comedy in the film, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I think they actually do a really good job of not just inserting the humor as the film goes on, but a lot of inside jokes and things poking fun at within the world of FNAF that the fan base will be able to have fun with. So that kept it entertaining as the movie went on. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. There is actually like a lot of things that go on, but the story at the same time is pretty thin. If anything, like I said, this movie feels more like it had to get through this stuff just so it can be the setup for the 3rd movie. And even the big reveals or newer characters with like that mystery guy, Skeet Ulrich, it doesn't get to flesh them out as much as I would like. Suspense in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Like, there is almost a kid-friendly feel with these movies. They are kid-friendly horror with that PG-13. And so in that sense, you kind of know which characters are being set up to get killed and which ones are gonna be making it out at the end. Horror in the movie, I'm gonna give 2.5 stars. A lot mainly for the amount of jump scares. The marionette, though, I think overall is the scariest thing about this, and some of the stuff they do with the puppet I thought was cool, and also just the designs of the Withered moving around. Those were pretty scary also. When looking at the 3 C's, I really can't recommend this for casuals because you must be a fan. You must know your homework to fully enjoy this. It's just so reliant on that point. And again, that's just good for them for wanting to, you know, give the fans what they want, but it is going to leave some people behind. Critics are going to be extremely harsh on just the randomness of how things happen. There's honestly a lot of plot holes within the movie also that we'd have to get into whenever I do spoilers. So I'd more have to recommend it on a cinephile level just for the animatronics, how cool that looks, and the entertainment value from being a fan of the property. So when looking at Five Nights at Freddy's 2, like I said, for most people, this will actually be a movie I'd recommend to rent at home. But from the fan perspective, I think it's fun and enjoyable enough to watch in theaters. There's definitely a lot more we're going to talk about and discuss when I do my spoiler review, so stay tuned for that. I do think this movie is an improvement from the first, although that's not really saying all that much. It's really what this movie is building towards and where we're headed that I'm like, okay, that is just a movie I desperately want to see. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.